Tere. Hello. It has been for me also a long time when I was, this kind of seminar in live. The last one actually was in Tartu, but nevertheless, it's very nice that I have been invited. So my presentation is actually a bit, my personality is that I'm a challenger. I always like to argue more than I'm supposed to. So in that way, I remember our management meetings very often when we had a term fire of some ideas, so that in 45 minutes everybody thought that now everything will end. So nobody had an agreement. So in this way, I support the idea that through communication and sharing ideas, and even when they are very, very strong ones, they need to be able to say, put on the table if you believe in them. So what I will talk about is that my own experience, it's not reflecting the whole truth and nothing but the truth. It's something that I have felt. And what I say is that I think that the different crises and different this kind of hard and difficult times, these need to be capitalized. We need to learn from them. I will talk about a little bit about also Lumi Capital, as this is this commercial part, what I promised that I will do, so that spread the word what we are doing, and I explain also how the last mile guy will end up be a real estate guy. So this is something what is quite difficult for some of my colleagues to understand, but I hope that I could do it with one slide for you, and then you can tell that whether you understood or not. Lumi Capital. Lumi Capital is a real estate investment management company who offers service to investors. Our customers are investors who want to invest in real estate. So we have about 12 people. Some of them are in maternity leave. In office, we usually have like 2 to 3 people, not because of the COVID, but because our work is not related to production of things, and our real estate is not in our office. So the real estate what we manage are out of office, so we need to go there. So if there is an investor who would like to invest to real estate, so we are buying real estate, we are developing real estate, we prefer certain segments where we feel stronger. Currently, we have about 300 million euros worth of real estate under our management. I think most of those names what I present are very known to you. So who hasn't went to Rimi or Maxima or received a parcel with HL? So this is quite to say wide list of tenants what we have. Mainly we concentrate in 3 segments, and as also from my business card we can read, it's I'm from the logistics, so in my expertise is warehouses and terminals. Sometimes the production facilities, but if they're really custom made or built to suit, then they're not something what we look into it. It's more to say bit different industrial real estate. And then 2 this kind of whales what we have. One is the rental houses, Lumi Kodud, what is so to say Baltic biggest private rental apartment business. And then nearby grocery shops where we have the fund what we manage, so that we buy smaller shops. And if you are also open to invest. So investment ticket starts from 1 million. So it's a bit for the bigger investors. So when I jump to my slide, this is my slide. Just to think that my background is from DPD, from Poste, from Itella, from Geopost. I have also worked in the very, very beginning of my career in Harju Maakohus. So a little bit experience from the state side as well. And before DPD was bought by French Post, the Geopost, it was owned by the Swedish Post. So my friends are joking that I'm really a postman. I have worked in Swedish Post, French Post, and Finnish Post, a very big part of my career. So this is the last mile business. Why last mile is so important is that it's about 40% of the total supply chain costs are in the last mile. We don't notice it, but in reality is that, raise a hand who who has received parcel during last few weeks or more. So did you deliver, was it delivered or was it picked up by the parcel machine? Delivered. So basically today the last mile is better to say half a mile also. About half of the parcels are delivered to the parcel machine, what means that you actually need to collect yourself. In business-wide, I think that most of the companies still prefer to have door delivery. Even so that there is concept of in-night delivery and delivery to the different, to say, specific products like just in time or delivered during night to the closed area. And from that, one day I thought that, okay, I saw also the trends that e-commerce was booming, and the problem was not only the delivery anymore, and I really see that delivery is getting more and more competition. And when I was working with Posti and with the Geopost, we had over the Europe, we had a constant problem of infrastructure. So it was really difficult to find good real estate. And the real estate owners in logistics, they like to earn a very premium money for that product. So I thought it's a good time for me to switch. So I switched from the last mile to basically middle section and started to develop our portfolio for Lumi Capital with logistic real estate. But this is not the reason why I was invited here today. But thank you for taking the commercial part as well. I found a very interesting picture actually in the toolbox of Office. I don't even know whether it's COVID or not, but it was a nice picture. So, and before we talked that it's important to learn from the crisis, then for me, as a young manager, one of the first crises was in 2008, 2009. What was the financial crisis? So totally different type of crisis. And I think that this good saying that without experience, you are willing to take bigger risks. So I was that time pretty young manager, and we took a hell of a lot of risks, that believing that none of the crises will last forever. One day the sun will shine again. So for me, it was quite clear that it could have been went other way, but lucky for me, it went the normal way, and the crisis ended and started a new cycle of economic cycle. So the journey, what I'm recommending to everybody to take, is actually the name is business continuity planning. And this is something what I did first time about 10 years ago. So not before the crisis, or not right after the crisis. But getting wiser, we understood that there are certain risks what we can't foresee, and we need to have this kind of structure, how to do it and how to manage it. And one of the recommendations is that this is not something what you do once and then you have it on the shelves, that you have the business continuity plan. This is this kind of awareness, so that you build awareness in the company that these kind of things may happen. It's not a negative thing, it might be positive things if we are prepared. So this is this kind of standard process for me. And I remember first time saying that we need to prepare ourselves if there will be a flood, so that there will be half of the road gone. So I think everybody remembers that this now was the year when actually in Europe, after the COVID and between the COVID waves, there was a flood that actually sank cities or towns. So business continuity is one of those tools what then you take out from the shelves and you start to think what were those key tasks, what you need to do. So who has been in some kind of team who has prepared or made a business continuity plan. So I see that this is, in a way, goes to the right address. It's today we freshly remember the COVID crisis, but not very often we want to take the lessons what we can learn from it. And if too much time passes, we only see this kind of success that we managed, we came out, we are alive. So, and that was also the minimum what you will, or maximum what you remember after 3 to 4 years. So that's why I urge people actually that if you have a, how to say, feeling that this kind of crisis could happen again, then make this kind of learning sessions, lessons learned, mark down what you did. Because next time, you might not be in that company, and there will be different people, and it will be a hell of a lot of help for them if they have some kind of experience and also would have a structure how to react, not only to the COVID-like crisis, but also very simple crisis. You are sitting at home watching AK uudised. You are reading the uudised very often there. So for in the end of this, there is a weather forecast. And you hear that outside temperature will drop during night, -34. So what's the first thing what you will think if you would be in transportation person? Yeah, well, how many cars in the morning will start? As our cars will run, let's say most of our cars today run on diesel. So you will not start to think that, oh, this is a new cold record. No, you call your biggest subcontractor. So please do something already now, as we wouldn't have in the morning, instead of 60 trucks, starting 7. And these kind of small things, like we had this experience with Paduarg, or Padu Valley, that's quite many years ago. But this was not only this one place, this was the one place when the truck was stuck. But the problem was everywhere, because even if we could, that was in time when I worked with DPD, even if we were able to send out the goods, we were not able to drive into the warehouses because they were not clean from snow. So this kind of crisis caused that there was, if we collected the goods, there was nowhere to put them because the terminals were built optimized size so that you are not able to consolidate. You pick up day one and you deliver next day. And there is a very nice story about my experience today working in real estate and coming from the last mile was that in last mile, your customer expectation is that you get the goods, you deliver next day. In real estate, the expectation is about 700 days longer. I also, back, forward. I also took a liberty to give this kind of small slide from the Wakefield so that how the process could look like and what are the key steps. I will not start to go through them because that probably will take days actually to have a training to explain and move step by step through the process. But I urge that this is something what these crises would help us to do and convince our colleagues to do better. When I did it first time, then the reaction was that why we need it. When it comes, then we solve it. We have always solved all the problems. That's not the issue. We have clever people. You only take care that we have clever people. Go talk to Annika. Annika was a HR manager for DPD that time. Yeah, sure. That's a good attitude how to start. I don't know who the author of this picture, but it was a very nice picture. And the question for everybody, does anybody know answer of that question?
Disrupt the economy.
Disrupt the economy. No. Actually, this what you see on the picture is actually innovation. Innovation in between 15th and 17th century in English language was a synonym to rebellion. So this is what we see as innovation. Very simple. Everybody would understand that if you were on the ship and you would use that word, you probably will be, how to say, pushed over the sea, or you will die. And there was only one option. If you make innovation, you must win. So we see that also in the startup industry, that a lot of those companies who start with the small ideas, they are really a rebellion. They want to change something. They see that there's industries what are taking too big profits. And why I don't know if it's that good example. The banks are taking a hell of a lot of profit from us. So and you start the rebellion. You start a fight. You create a product what is more economical, more cheaper, and with the same functionalities maybe. So this is from where the word came. And if somebody knows who's the author of this picture, then I would gladly write it on the bottom of somewhere, so not to use it without the source. And I took a liberty to push myself from this business continuity to innovation, because sometimes also the crisis push us to make faster decisions and take different kind of risks, the mitigating the risks, and also if you're not prepared, then what is the innovation today? Innovation is actually testing things, testing old things, failing, learning from failures. And this kind of good rule is that if you test 100 things and 20 wins and 80 loses, but the gain, what you get from this 20, would be bigger than the loss what you make from the 80, what you had a bad experience, is still worth it. So for me, innovation in Estonia is something what is very practical. When I talked to Arno Kütt about, was it 15 years ago, and he complained that Estonian Post is rubbing. They are slow, bad service. They don't deliver on time. You have to wait in the post office. And what you're complaining? Do something about it. And as we see that he has done something about it. So, and one big part with what may be innovation with COVID and with last mile is that as we also heard that the lack of drivers, and the lack of drivers will be a constant as the boom of e-commerce is something what we can't stop anymore. This rolls, and we see that the grocery deliveries what are actually today quite expensive in a way to produce it. So many of the investors are willing to bet on that their money, to pay it, to give money to investors, so that they are making equal loss per delivery than the actual cost is. So the minus 200% delivery efficiency. But why they're doing this? They believe in the market. They believe that today the economy of scale is not there. The technology is not yet reached to that level. But when the switch will come, they are there. They have the customer engagement already. And they will capitalize it in 5 to 10 years maybe. So I really much believe that semi-automated deliveries in the last mile, that this will happen in relatively short time, let's say 10 years. So working from home as a driver, what could seems to be an impossible dream, so that knowing that in DPD and Posti, that was normal that people worked from home, except the production. And production can't work from home. You can't deliver parcel with the car sitting home. But when we looked also some of the newer innovations, then one thing is the self-driving cars. But let's take a step back. Why do you need the self-drive? You can have it that 98% drives self when straight, and 2% somebody else drives from a distant location, from home or from station somewhere. And it's not only the last mile delivery. We are seeing ships where the captain in the future steps out with the, not to say, from home office, steps to the and sees the view of the sea and continues his working day as normal, 4 hours shift, and then back to the kitchen helping with the sandwiches, and goes back again 4 hours in the shift. So these are these kind of small steps what I think we are taking in connection with last mile. I'm not talking about industrial, this kind of 4.0 or logistics 5.0. These are this kind of visions what will take probably much more also participation from the production side. As for me, logistics is a parasite. Logistic companies are parasites in this way, that they wouldn't exist if there wouldn't be goods. So if you don't order, they will not deliver. If that's very simple. We don't go to the internet to buy transportation. We go internet to buy jeans or makeup or flowers. The transportation is something what makes this product to come in the right place where we need it. So I see that I'm a bit earlier, I think. This was a good slide as well. I think that there is sun behind the clouds in any weather. We only have to be brave enough to wait till it comes out again. So for me, every this kind of bad experience has been more valuable than any of the goods. Some reasons I'm not so good at replicating the good things many times over and over, but I'm pretty good being avoiding stepping to the same hole twice. So I would say thank you for listening. I think I have this kind of super slide as well, but this is in case you are sharing my presentation, that people can see this kind of trends, and this would take another few days to explain what is there. This is, and you can go to the source, there's more information about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tarmo. Can I ask you to, again,
thank you.
Take a comfortable seat here, enough of standing. Maybe we'll do it other way around this time. So instead of me asking the questions, maybe there's someone super anxious to ask a question from Tarmo. Raise your hand if you're super anxious, and if you're not, I'm very anxious to ask a few questions myself. Okay, I'm going to use that privilege then. Tarmo, you mentioned the robots will be the future, but what's the challenge that still needs to be solved? Because I live in Kalamaja. I see those cute Starship robots mostly standing next to the road. I don't really see them go around that often. So is the technology ripe yet? And if it's not, then where do you see the issues? Where do you see the challenges?
Yeah, about 2 years ago in the same building, different presentation, I talked about innovation and technology in the last mile. So I think that this is not one robot or one technology what today we can say that clearly wins. There is, as this innovation means testing and learning. So there are multiple companies who are trying similar but same time different technologies, how to solve the same problem. So example, we have self-driving buses, and then we have this kind of remote-controlled buses. So they're trying to solve similar problem, but just that the belief is that there will be this kind of road what is not straight. It will go this kind of vinka-vonka, how it's in English. So curvy road, yeah. And there will be different technologies. Maybe some will win in some moment, and others win in another moment. And of course, the acceptance of the perspective law, that whether we allow self-driving cars on the road, that's another question. And we have to learn also that today the robotics and this is very expensive. It's not to say comparable for the cost of human. We also saw in production that we are not going to invest in robotics if there is not enough economy of scale. So we could see that in the bigger volumes in some bigger cities, this kind of tests will come more, earlier because there's a economy of scale, and it's good to test in Estonia as here is the competence is here, and it's a smaller country, it's easier to change the legislation, etc., etc. So I believe that it's not a clear answer that which technology will win today.
Where else do you see room for innovation in the logistics sector? I mean, we saw those cute robots already that we all know, but is there a hidden area which you only know, which you would want to share with us now?
In a way, about 10 years ago, there was a paper in, I think it was Singapore, some paper what wrote about this kind of megatrends. And 10 years ago, the megatrends. And now when I read this paper, about 10 years later, then some of the things haven't still happened. So many things, like the 3D printing, we learn more and more that many things can be printed, but we are not printing home the spoons or something. It's still, this kind of smaller items. And but this is what will have an impact for the logistics if they will start to print more products on site, so that the centralized production today, as we heard also, that it will become a more decentralized, but this will be heavily decentralized when you can print the things, so that you lose a very big part of this kind of cost of item delivery when you deliver the material, the bulk material.
That last slide that you just briefly showed, it'd be interesting to
put it back, yeah.
Get deeper into that. I mean, to understand the most important, trends of innovation, and maybe like how they should be further developed. Why do you think some of those directions are important, and how can we put them into practical use?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question for me. I don't know.
Well, it's quite a slide also, with a lot of smart words on it.
So is it back now?
We don't see it yet. Oh, we see the clouds, so we have to move one slide further.
Which way I have to push now?
The other way. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, I was thinking that, so that just to show that this is not innovation is not only in one area, and as logistics is very much interdisciplinary area, so that need to be the puzzle what we need to put together is much wider. But one of the things what I believe in is that predicting there will be more warehouses in the future as the products are moving closer. But at the same time, and another part is that as today we see that the energy prices are going up. This means also that if we're not solving the transportation energy as a consumption, so with some other source, then also this cost will go up. And same time, the cost of money is going down. So it makes sense that to invest also in the local this kind of distribution centers. But here is really, this is a very deep topic, and all those lines are connected to everything. So.
Well, we have about 10 minutes before our next speaker arrives. So if there is something you want to focus on, we have also a question from the audience. But Tarmo, if you want to finish your sentence.
Yeah, we can take the question. I can think about topics.
Let's have the question then. The microphone to the gentleman in the first row then, and then to Mait also.
It's a really interesting table. I just have a question of two parts. First is really augmented reality. We knew about the Google Glasses already several years ago. Why it is not such a usual part of our daily life that we have some kind of Google Glasses? And then a more tricky question and even more practical. And if I have grandchildren, let's say 13 years old, after 5 years, should they do a traditional driving license, or it's obsolete to have a traditional driving license not after 20 years?
Yeah.
So the postman needs to know everything, Tarmo.
Yeah. So starting from the second question, that honestly, I don't know, in 5 years it's too short time maybe to predict, but in 20 years probably you don't need a driving license. That way you have a public transportation really this is not something how we see the future, that there will be more cars. So I think already today there are many of the young people, and including my sister, they are, how to say, doing the driving license because we force them that you need to do it. But in really, I don't want to do it, so why are you forcing me? So it's not so black and white, and as also the public transportation in the cities is pretty good. And this is, I think, this kind of feeling of freedom, having your own car is a luxury. So it will change. So, and the first part of the question was about Google Glasses.
Why we don't have them?
I remember the experiment in Geopost times when we had a terminal what was to say, testing the Google Glasses for parcel sorting. So the idea was so that instead of reading the number from the label of this parcel, what to be sorted in which way, what was a manual sorting centers, what were not the big ones where you have automated sorting, then these boxes what will mark green you may take from the belt. Basically, you select the program that I sort now, example, parcels to Narva. You put on the classes, and then all the parcels what are coming on the belt, like in the airport, you know, this belt is moving, they would be green what you need to take off. So the experiment ended quite fast. I think in a few months' time they learned that it's not, to say, efficient. It will not work 100%. And I understood also from the Google side that it was they didn't see the perspective of that, and it was too expensive in that time. So they invest more money into it. I think they parked it somewhere. But yeah, it's my experience.
Mike has a question.
Thank you very much. Let's check whether it's working. Yeah, it's working now. Thank you very much for providing rather good overview about the logistic sector and pointing out also kind of prosperous or forthcoming innovations in your sector. You also mentioned in your presentation that approximately 40%, if I remember correctly, is about last mile delivery. So can you predict this sector more in detail? So what kind of changes they're going to happen, whether this percentage is going to get higher, or what are your predictions? Because we have seen kind of confusing notes from the market. In some subsectors, it is already grown, but in some others, we can see also the drawbacks where kind of delivery machines are taken away from the retail chains, and they are replaced by handing over the handbags. And what's your predictions?
Okay, I think there's also this is a let's start from before predicting, let's look in the past. So and let's take a near past, pre-COVID. And then let's take an example, Estonia. So it's a small country, very innovative country. They take new technology very fast. And about 2 years ago, there was about 10 million deliveries for last mile. From what also somehow half were the private people, consumer deliveries. So does anybody dare to guess what's 2 years after the COVID, the delivery numbers, including the parcel machine and post offices?
40 million.
Not so good, but in the next 2 years, maybe. But 20 million. So we have doubled, basically. And majority of that delivery, it didn't come from the business side. It came from the business to consumer. So that the deliveries to business deliveries maybe even got smaller or stayed in the same level. The growth was relatively small, but the deliveries to home and the e-commerce were booming. So what we believe also that the food delivery, what today is quite early stage, and what I also said, that will 200% basically companies pay to deliver the food to you. It's not that it's cost efficient today, but the belief is that there will be enough volume and the economy of scale will come and technology will change. So yes, I believe that these numbers will continue to grow. Talking with Omniva, DPD, Venipac, then all of them are this year having record numbers of deliveries. So we can't say that the record number of profits, as the bigger thing is that the competition is stronger. Even so that you have economy of scale, you have this kind of hidden cost that if you grow too fast, you are to say you cannot you're not prepared the investment properly, and you have a higher unit cost if you reach this certain volume. I think it's same in production, that if you are your factory has a limit, what is optimal, and when you want to produce more, you start to pay additional overtime or whatever additional costs you may have there, or different transportation costs due to the fact that you need to deliver faster the late deliveries. So 40 million in near future in our, to say, lifespan, let's say 5 years, 6 years.
If we talk more about innovation, we already spoke about robots, and Google Glasses, but artificial intelligence, how much potential do you see in that? I mean, and also, are there like challenges like ethical issues, I don't know, laws that need to be changed?
Yeah,
do you see that if that's the future?
Yeah, I see that as a bit of, to say, step down, that this analytical tools and the business tools what are already today existing, they are becoming smarter and smarter. I see that transportation optimization, there's a huge, to say, step forward about 10 years ago, and where basically all the main bigger companies went to the cloud to calculate the routes, because I remember when we started, and Estonia, Latvia were one of these kind of test pilot countries, as we had small volume, relatively small volume that time, and then we sent to the Microsoft cloud, I think it was that time, or no, Amazon cloud. We sent our data to be analyzed, and it didn't come back anymore. So it was not working. The clouds were not ready yet for that kind of volume. Even for small Estonia, one depot, you send out optimization. So it was not able to do that. And today we see that almost everybody is doing it. And it's similar what we see when we take the Waze or Google. We put one address in. But imagine now that the transportation companies will put in 10,000 addresses, and they want to have optimized route. So there's a lot of more, to say, analytical power. But yeah, this is coming, but I'm not, I think, the best person to answer the very straightforward answer how it will happen.
But as a postman, maybe you have,
Yeah,
as you called yourself, maybe you have good insight when the supply and demand shock that we still see in international markets and in logistics, when will that calm down? I mean, the slide where we had the stuck ship on, I mean, that was quite an old photo, but we still see like quite a dramatic situation in container ships. I mean, I ordered loudspeakers that were transported from China to Denmark took like 2 months to get them there.
Yeah, I think that it's a combined problem. It's not that the transportation is not there. I think that there are this lack of and deficit of certain components. It's not so that you can't deliver a product when you have 1,000 components and 2 are missing. So it's the 2 components. So it's not the F1 car will not drive if you have 1 wire missing. So that's also similar. So that it's not only that the transportation wouldn't be able. But today I think it's more that we are healing from this past crisis, and we're adapting. So I don't know. This is.
It's going to go.
Could you help me?
It's going to go on for some weeks and months.
Now the containers are in totally wrong places also. They simply don't have containers to put the cargo.
Yeah, this balance has actually all the containers are because in there where they need to be shipped. But the goods are in the different places. We saw in New Zealand there was a fight over local government selecting a different company from Asia, not the local shipper, to deliver the containers from one island to another island. So and the similar problems worldwide. But it's something that probably will be solved quicker than we assume. So I don't see that. Where is the optimism what we have? But it's not the only transportation mode, but what we saw also during the crisis is that when many of the passenger planes actually were stopped, then cargo planes and the prices went heavily up. When we talk about TSV stock price went up like 2.5 times during first 3 months of the crisis. So
Well, I'm afraid I have a pessimistic message to wrap this up. Our time's up. I mean, we could continue for a while. Ladies and gentlemen, Tarmo Tael, an applause.
Thank you.